It began with a scream no one heard, because it came from the woods. By the time Maplewood realized something was wrong, the Johnson children were already gone. What remained was a single shoe, and a trail that led investigators into a darkness the town had feared for decades. Before we dive into the main story, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell notification button for more interesting videos like this. Maplewood wasn't the type of place where nightmares were born, it was the type of place where they were buried. The Johnson family, Sarah, Tom, and their 4 children, Ella, 12, Jake, 10, Lily, 8, and little Max, 6, were the living picture of Maplewood's charm. Every weekend, they disappeared into the wide, whispering woods behind their home, returning with muddy boots, tangled hair, and stories of their tiny adventures. But on that final Sunday, as the sunlight dripped gently through the trees and the wind hummed its familiar lullaby, Maplewood failed to notice the stillness, the way the birds had stopped singing, the way the shadows stretched unnaturally across the forest floor, as though warning the children not to enter. They went anyway. And by nightfall, nothing was ever the same. At 6:15 p.m., Sarah set the table for dinner. By 6:45, she was calling out the kids' names with a light laugh. By 7:10, her voice trembled. By 7:30, she was screaming. Tom sprinted between the yard and the trees, searching for glimpses of small footprints or a flash of familiar clothing. Ella. Jake. Lil, Max. His voice cracked into silence. The woods swallowed it. The police arrived by 8:12 p.m. Flashlights flickered across the dark underbrush. Officers shouted instructions, search dogs barked, and volunteers from Maplewood gathered in a frantic blur. The forest, usually a place of childhood magic, felt suffocating. Watching. Hiding something. At 9:03 p.m., an officer called out. Sarah ran. Half buried in a patch of brittle leaves lay one tiny sneaker. Max's. The blue one with the faded dinosaur sticker. She dropped to her knees, clutching it, rocking back and forth as if she could will it to lead her to him. But beyond the shoe, there was nothing. No struggle. No tracks. No children. Just silence. Search teams combed the forest with relentless precision. Drones flew overhead. Dogs sniffed every path. Volunteers shouted until their voices grew hoarse. But the woods gave nothing back. No footprints. No fabric scraps. No evidence of an animal attack. Nothing to suggest abduction. Kids don't just vanish, Detective Rowan muttered, but even he didn't believe it. Still, on the 3rd day, he found something odd, a circle of stones arranged deliberately on a mossy patch. At first glance it seemed natural. But the symmetry was too perfect. Too intentional. And at the center of it, a small handprint pressed into the earth. The print was fresh. The search expanded into deeper parts of the woods, areas locals avoided, areas wrapped in old stories and superstitions. Areas where compasses misbehaved and cell signals died. Maplewood's whispers grew louder. Something is wrong with those woods. Something has always been wrong. A week passed. Then 2. The Johnson home transformed into a shrine of grief. The children's rooms remained untouched. Their toys sat in the living room like abandoned memories. Sarah hardly slept, she simply stared out the window toward the woods, waiting. Then the notes began. The first appeared under the front door one morning, written in shaky black ink. They are not lost. Just hidden. Tom tried to take it from her. People do sick things during tragedies, he said, voice tight. Ignore it. But the second note arrived 2 days later. Follow the quiet. Listen to the shadows. The third. The woods remember. Every note felt heavier, colder, as if someone had written them while standing in the dark just outside their home. Sarah felt watched. Followed. The woods pulsed with a strange life, the air charged with something she could feel in her bones. She tried telling Tom, but he insisted she was exhausted, imagining things. Except Sarah wasn't imagining the figure she thought she saw one night, standing at the tree line, motionless, watching her bedroom window until the porch light flicked on and it slipped into the darkness. She was not imagining the whispers she heard when she stepped outside at dawn, faint and distant, like children calling from far away. Or were they? She could no longer tell. On the 30th day, just when hope seemed as thin as the morning fog, a hiker stumbled into a clearing deep in the restricted section of the forest. What he found was impossible. A perfect circle of wildflowers glowed faintly as if lit from within. Fireflies swirled unnaturally in a slow spiral. And at the center, sitting silently, were Ella, Jake, Lily, and Max. Their clothes were intact. Their bodies unharmed. No signs of starvation, exposure, or fear. But their eyes. Their eyes were wrong. Glassy. Wide. Reflecting a flicker of light that seemed to come from nowhere. When the children were reunited with their parents, relief shattered into sobs. Sarah clung to them as if afraid they would dissolve into smoke. But joy turned to confusion when the children began to speak. Their voices were calm. Too calm. "We were safe," Ella whispered. "They showed us the quiet world," Jake added. "Where shadows dance," Lily murmured. "And time doesn't move," Max finished with a soft smile. Detective Rowan felt a chill coil up his spine. "What do you mean, they?" he asked. But the children only blinked slowly, and fell silent. Weeks later, Maplewood remained unsettled. The children were physically fine, yet their behavior was unnerving. They often woke at 3:07 a.m. sharp, sitting upright in perfect stillness. They drew symbols no one recognized. They refused to go near sunlight but were drawn to dark corners. Most disturbing of all, they could not recall who they were. Or perhaps they would not. The Johnson home became a place of quiet dread. Doors creaked when no one touched them. Shadows seemed to linger too long. The children spoke to each other in whispers not meant for human ears. Sarah kept the curtains shut. Tom slept on the couch more often now. Their laughter was gone, replaced by an unspoken fear neither dared to voice. What if the children who came back are not the same ones who left? The town avoided the woods entirely. But on a cold evening, as the Johnsons attempted to eat dinner together, little Max suddenly turned his head toward the window. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "They're coming back," he whispered. A soft knock echoed from the back door. Once. Twice. 3 times. And then, silence. The knock at the back door echoed through the Johnson home like a warning shot. Tom froze mid-breath. Sarah's hand tightened around Max's shoulder. The 4 children stared at the door with unsettling calmness, as if they'd been waiting for this very moment. When Tom finally mustered the courage to open the door, heart hammering, flashlight trembling, there was nothing. Only the cold night, and a faint trail of footprints leading back toward the woods. But they weren't the children's footprints. These prints were longer. Narrower. Almost skeletal. And they stopped abruptly at the tree line, as if the creature had stepped back into the waiting darkness. Sarah slammed the door shut. That night, no one slept. For the next several days, the Johnson children behaved more strangely. Ella began arranging stones in precise circles in the yard, circles identical to the one where they'd been found. Jake refused to speak unless in riddles. Lily insisted someone whispered to her whenever the house lights flickered. And Max kept humming a tune no one recognized. Low. Haunting. Rhythmic like footsteps following from behind. The pediatric psychiatrist they brought in concluded trauma. But Detective Rowan, who had followed the case from the beginning, was not convinced. "These kids didn't just get lost," he whispered to Tom after one home visit. "They brought something back with them." On the 7th night after their return, Sarah awoke to faint scratching sounds. She tiptoed down the hall, and spotted Lily standing in front of the large mirror in the living room. Lily was whispering to her reflection. But the reflection wasn't whispering back. It was smiling. Sarah's scream shattered the moment. She pulled Lily away, shaking, and the girl blinked, confused. "Mommy, don't be scared," Lily said softly. "They just want to visit." "They?" Sarah demanded. "Who are they?" Lily smiled with a strange sadness. "The quiet ones." Detective Rowan dug into Maplewood's oldest archives. He found stories centuries old. Stories about children disappearing into the woods, only to return changed. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the quiet ones, forest dwellers trapped between worlds. Shadows of people who once lived, cursed to walk endlessly, drawn to the innocence of children. According to folklore, once a child had danced with the shadows, the quiet ones would return to claim them. Rowan stormed toward the Johnson home, files in hand, but by the time he arrived, it was too late. The children were gone. The back door was wide open. A cold wind blew through the house. On the kitchen table, a message written in charcoal. "They were never yours to keep." The shoe that had once been the only clue from the first disappearance lay in the same spot as before. But now there were 4 of them, one belonging to each child. Sarah collapsed. Tom sank with her. Rowan's hands shook as he traced the edges of the footprints leading toward the woods. They weren't running. They weren't taken by force. They walked out willingly. The search intensified again, and Rowan ventured deeper into the woods, farther than anyone before him. For 3 days he searched, guided by symbols carved into trees, whispers that felt like breath on his neck, and the chill of something not human. On the dawn of the 4th day, he found it. The same clearing. The same stone circle. But this time, the flowers were dead. Wilted. Blackened as if burned without fire. No children. Just silence. Then he noticed something half buried beneath the stones. A drawing, Ella's style, Ella's handwriting. 4 stick-figure children holding hands. Across from them, 4 taller, shadow-shaped figures. Underneath, a single sentence. "We're part of them now." Rowan's breath hitched. He stumbled backward, heart racing, when something cold touched his shoulder. He spun around. No one. But the woods felt alive. Watching. Waiting. 2 weeks later, the Johnson home went dark. Sarah and Tom moved away in the dead of night, unable to bear the reminders of laughter that would never return. Maplewood tried to forget. The woods stood silent, deceptively peaceful. Then, one fog-drenched morning, a jogger spotted 4 children standing perfectly still at the edge of the forest. Ella. Jake. Lily. Max. Their skin pale. Their eyes hollow. They smiled in unison. Then they stepped backward into the woods, melting into the mist without leaving a single footprint. Search teams found nothing. Only 4 small handprints on a nearby tree trunk, pressed deep into the bark as if burned there. And beneath them, scratched in a shaky script. "We'll come back when the next children are ready." The nightmare was not over. It had only begun. The forest was silent the next morning, too silent. Detective Mara Jensen felt that silence gnawing at her ribs as she stepped beneath the trees, her flashlight cutting through the blue-gray mist. The children's silhouettes from the night before haunted her mind, replaying like broken frames from a corrupted camera. But she wasn't the only one who had seen them. All across town, residents reported the same vision, 4 children standing silently in the woods, watching. Waiting. Their descriptions matched perfectly, even among people who had never met. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some whispered that the kids were ghosts. Others believed they were victims of a cover-up. And a few feared something much worse, that the children were alive, and trapped. Mara dug deeper. The breakthrough came when she discovered an old case file hidden in the sheriff's archives, sealed, and signed, and marked Family Confidential. Inside were 4 names that made her blood run cold. Liam. Ava. Jonah. Elise. The children of the Hawkins family. Reported missing 9 years ago. The official record claimed they had drowned. But there were no bodies. No investigation. Just silence. A manufactured silence. As Mara flipped through the pages, she found a final photograph, one taken in the Hawkins living room just days before the disappearance. In the background, behind the smiling children, stood a shadow in the hallway. Grainy. Tall. Humanoid. This wasn't a family tragedy. It was a cover-up. And someone in this town had gone to great lengths to bury it. That night, Mara returned to the forest. The air was colder than before, the fog thicker. She approached the clearing where she had first seen the silhouettes. This time, they stepped forward. The children were clearer now, still pale, still quiet, but no longer ghostly illusions. Their clothes were torn, dirty, old, as if time had forgotten them. Liam, the oldest, met her eyes with a look that could shatter bone. "Help us," he whispered. A voice so small. So tired. A voice that did not echo, because the forest was holding its breath. Before Mara could speak, a branch snapped behind her. Slow. Heavy. She wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the dark, face hidden beneath the shadow of a hood. The same shape from the old photograph. The same height. The same presence. The children stepped back as if they feared it. Mara reached for her radio. The figure spoke first. "You should have left this alone." Its voice was familiar. Her heart stopped. It was the sheriff. The man who sealed the files. The man who led the original investigation. The man the entire town trusted. "Those kids were never meant to be found," he said. The forest swallowed his words. The children's silhouettes flickered, between life, memory, and something trapped in between. Liam stepped beside Mara, gripping her hand. "Don't let him take us again." The sheriff lunged. Mara drew her weapon. A single shot cracked through the trees, echoing for the first time in years. When the fog settled, the sheriff lay motionless. And the children were gone. All that remained were 4 small footprints in the dirt, trailing deeper into the forest before fading into nothingness. Were they alive? Were they spirits? Were they something else entirely? No one knows. The Hawkins case made national news within hours. The town fell into chaos. And Mara, haunted, restless, couldn't sleep for weeks. Every night, she returned to the forest. And every night, she swore she could hear small footsteps running just beyond the trees. Not running away. Running toward something. Toward her. The case was closed, but the mystery wasn't. The sheriff was dead, but the truth buried beneath the Hawkins family tragedy was only beginning to surface. The children might still be out there. The forest might still be guarding secrets. And Detective Mara Jensen knows one thing for certain. Some nightmares don't end. They evolve. Want more stories like this? Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our story, because it's just getting started.